Hi. I'm a minute late because I had to wash my glasses. I had water spots all over them. Okay, we're on chapter 5, The Thunder Egg Stone. Let's find out what this stone is all about, shall we? Bucky and Tommy did their usual chores, bringing in the wood and the cobs, carrying water from the pump, feeding the hens and the 2 calves. Bickie's feet dragged. His heart was too heavy to carry. It was bad enough to go to school with the old blue coat, but to wear the plug hat too? Don't feel bad, Bickie, Tommy whispered as they fetched the old wash boiler filled with the last load of cobs. I saw the sack under the coats in the kitchen door. I think there's something in it. Sacks usually have something in them, Bickie scoffed. Was it a paper sack or a gunny sack? Well, come see. It's apples, Mother told them as they started to look at the sack set underneath the coats and the other garments that hung on the wall by the door. Red Hog Smith was here today, and he brought a bushel of apples. The boys each took an apple, sat down near the stove at the edge of the wood box. I showed Red Hog that stone that you boys dug up, and he says that it's called a thunder egg. He lifted it, and he says it's so heavy it must have a big core of agate inside. The boys ran and took a look at that big stone, propping open their bedroom door of the lean-to bedroom. Thunder egg, Bickie said it over and over again. What could such a name mean? Mother, Tommy called, tell us what Red Hog said about it. Why is it called a thunder egg? Well, Red Hog says that there are lots of the stones there in the California desert. The Indians call them thunder eggs. Mother brushed the curly wisps of her black hair from her forehead with her hand and brought another iron from the stove. The Indians think the noise of the thunder is made by one of a giant bird. They call it thunderbird. Of course, no one has ever saw such a bird, but when the Indians found the egg-like stones in the desert, they supposed that they were the eggs of those thunderbirds. Bickie looked at the stone. He felt a strong pride rising in his heart. This wonderful thunder egg belonged to him and Tommy. They found it themselves. They dug it up out of the earth. How do you suppose it got on our land? Tommy asked. Was it the flood? Mother laughed. No, I don't think so. I shouldn't wonder, though, if your Uncle Dirk brought it from California. You know, he's always collecting stones. There's a pile of stones by the back fence in the corner by the maple grove. You boys should go look at them. The boys looked out the window. It was getting dark, and Bickie decided, he'd wait till tomorrow to go and see and look for Uncle Dirk's pile of stones. Excuse me. Mother, what did Red Hog say when he said it had a core of agate? Mother pushed a heavy iron back and forth over the clothes that she was ironing. I think you boys better go talk with Red Hog yourselves. He was in the gold rush too, you know. He was in California for several years at the same time that your uncle Dirk was there. When can we go? Bickie said. Of course you can go tonight. She glanced out the window. It's getting dark already. If you hurry back home from school tomorrow and do your chores, you may go then. That night, when Bickie laid snuggled under the heavy quilts beside Tommy, he thought about Thunder Egg. He wondered how it happened to be buried in the floor of the cellar. Why did Uncle Dirk put that pile in the pile with the other rocks Mother told them about? Then he remembered again that they had never mentioned to Mother where they had dug up that stone. Again he decided that it didn't matter. After all, it was just a stone, a thunder egg from California. But just a stone, after all. Tommy, he roused his drowsy brother. Tommy, How do you suppose that thunder egg came to be buried in the cellar? Tommy lifted himself up on his elbow, and he rubbed his eyes and he yawned. I still think it's the flood, he said. Yes, it must have been the flood. It washed it all the way over here from California. Well, I think Uncle Dirk brought it, Bickie insisted, just like Mother told us. Tommy settled down under the quilts again. He said nothing more. Bickie could not sleep so easily. His thoughts turned to the old blue coat and the plug hat. He twisted and he squirmed under the covers as he pictured himself dressed in that hated garment. But when he finally went to sleep, he dreamed of the desert of California, strewn with thunder eggs and enormous birds flying overhead. When he awakened the following day, he couldn't remember for a minute what he must be heavy and sad about. Then it rolled over him in a rush. Today you must wear the plug hat, not only the blue soldier coat, but the plug hat too. Kitty, please don't. Mama, please, let me wear just the scarf, he pleaded. It will keep my ears warm. No, Bickie, I'm afraid of those earaches. That hat will just keep all the wind out. The scarf isn't thick enough. You must wear the hat and the scarf. This is my kitty. This is Snow White. She's braving it now that the dogs are gone. So Bickie went to school that day, swathed in from ear to ear in a pale pink scarf with the plug hat resting firmly on his head. He peered out from underneath it to pick up his way among the snowdrifts. Oh, look, his playmates shouted with desertion when they saw him. It's General Snoot! How are you, General Snoot? They saluted and stood stiff at attention, mocking him. In shame and hot anger, Bickie followed all the others into the entrance hall at the ringing of the school bell. There, he took off his plug hat and hid it with the blue coat and the pink scarf underneath all the wraps. The hat was hard to hide. It was tall and stiff. The other pupils were already in their desk. He must go in. With one disgusted backward look, he entered the schoolroom and tried to forget about the newest disgrace in the activities of the morning. He saw Miss Kitty look questionably at him. She smiled at him, and his heart warmed for just a moment. She couldn't know anything about the torment he was suffering, but of course not. At recess, one of the big boys grabbed the hat from its hook before Bickie could reach it. He carried it to the playground, and the other boys gathered round. Oh, I want to be General Snoot, one of them cried. And he snatched that hat right away and put it on his own head. No, I'm General Snoot, said another one of his classmates, screaming, and he grabbed the hat, and he looked on in painful embarrassment as the boys teased. He secretly hoped that the hat would be ruined so he would never have to wear it again. But he was afraid of what Mother might say, for that hat had been her father's. Well, Nels Whitney came along with the stick, and he hoisted that hat up on that stick away from all the other boys, and they all fell into a parade. And they formed behind the leader, and they shouted, General Snoot! General Snoot! They carried the hat out into the patch of tall weeds where the large road sign stood, and it read in big letters, Marshalltown 12 miles, Edenville 12 miles, Center State 1 mile, or State Center 1 mile. Nils lifted that hat on the end of the stick until he could hook it on the corner of the big signboard. Now General Snoot can see which way to go, the boys shouted and danced with mischief. The school bell was ringing, and the youngster scrambled for the door. Bickie looked up at the hat high. on the signboard. Nels had taken the stick with him. There was no way to get that plug hat down. Miss Kitty would scold him if he was late to his desk. Plenty of time to get it in the afternoon. He hurried inside. At noon, the hat was gone. The wind could have blown it away, or some passerby could have stolen it. The children were all very sorry for its disappearance. Surely none of them intended to destroy it. Yet, with all their searching, it could not be found. That evening, Bickie went home, his head wrapped only in the pink scarf. When Mother heard the whole story, she got out old pieces of wool from the trunk. By light of her coal lamp, she worked late into the night. In the morning, Bickie had a fine new cap to wear. Never found that old plug hat. The next morning, Pete waited for Bickie in the weed patch where his other cap had been lost. Pete was a chunky little fellow with sandy hair and innocent gray eyes. He didn't laugh a lot or make jokes like his big brother Nels, but he could think up more mischief than any of those 4 boys all together. "Come on in here," he called to Bickie, the Ross boys, as they came along the road. "We'll hide in here and we'll see him when Miss Kitty comes out with that bell, and then we'll run as fast as we can." Bickie knew why Pete had waited for him. He wanted to fix it so the boys wouldn't have time to make fun of him and that old blue coat. "Let's go rabbit hunting tomorrow," Pete whispered as the boys were breathless from their short run. They hung their wraps into the entry hall. "I'll bring Dad's musket and you bring your dad's." "Your mom will let you bring it, won't she?" "Well, we might not get to go right after school," Pete whispered as they walked into the room. Now, Bickie had 2 things to look forward to and think about. Tonight, after school, when they got to go ask Red Hog Smith about the Thunder Egg. Tomorrow night, they would go rabbit hunting. The day was not too hard as usual, although Miss Kitty was cross with the children, and they had also forgotten about the nicknames Soldier and General Snoot. Yes, Snoot, Snoot. Bickie was glad when school was dismissed. He and Tommy hurried home and did their chores in a hurry. Then they ran down the road toward Red Hog's. When the boys found Red Hog, he was just swilling the pigs. That means feeding. The trough surrounded by the splendid red hogs made a fine sight. They knew that no finer hogs existed in Iowa. They knew that Red Hog had gotten his name because of his beautiful hogs. "Did you see our Thunder Egg?" Bickie asked the farmer. "Oh, I saw it yesterday." Red Hog smiled at them. "It's a fine stone indeed. Must be one your uncle brought from California." "I'm sure it's a Thunder Egg, though," he told them. "I lifted it. You can always tell a Thunder Egg because it's heavy." Gourds are shaped like eggs, too, but they are hollow in the center. You can tell the difference between them by lifting them. Our stone is awful heavy," Tommy said. Since John whitewashed it, we keep it against our bedroom door, just like the stone in your house." Red Hog laughed. "The inside of the Thunder Egg is agate. It's like your marbles, you know." He chewed on the cud of his tobacco. If you saw a Thunder Egg in 2 and polished the halves, they look like precious stones. The agate inside is hard and heavy." "I don't see why Uncle Dirk wanted to carry a heavy thing like that all the way from California," Bickie said. "Your Uncle Dirk was kind of odd. He liked rocks." Red Hog dumped the last bucket of swill into the pig's trough and turned toward the house. "I like them, too. I brought one home with me. Would you like to see it?" The boys stood outside the door on the porch while Red Hog went in and brought out half of an egg-shaped stone, not quite as big as the one that they had. He held the cut face of it up for the boys to see. It was slick like glass and showed beautiful picture inside. In the center, there was something that looked like a white throne. A green figure was sitting on it. And behind the figure, there was wings that formed and looked like angels in the background. And at the foot of the throne flowed the green river, swirling away on either side. The boys looked at that stone. They were overcome with wonder. It is the picture of our Lord on the throne in heaven, Red Hog told them. Not all thunder eggs have pictures in them, but the polished stones always give something beautiful. Sometimes there are trees and animals. Do you suppose our thunder egg has a picture in it? I hefted it when I was over at your place, Red Hog smiled at them. I think it must have been something pretty inside of it, but the stone is hard to cut, and it is difficult to polish. I had mine done down in Marshalltown. The man who did it charged me $3 whole, and then he kept the other half of the stone too. The boy still gazed at the shining surface of the wonderful stone. Red Hog had them hold it, and they passed their fingers over the slick face of it. Where did you fellows find this stone that you got? Red Hog asked. Oh, we found it buried right in the middle of our old crazy cellar. You know, the cellar under the house that burnt down. The one that you helped us get out of. I guess the flood must have washed it over here from California and buried it here. Tommy said with a wise look. No, I don't think so. Red Hog drew his face into a frown. There was deep wrinkles in his eyes, and his mouth was tight and straight. No, boys? I never seen no stones like this in these parts. I mean, I never saw one lying away loose. Someone must have buried it in that cellar of yours. He still frowned, and he pulled his heavy beard. Just pulled because he was thinking. You know, I think that must be one of your Uncle Dirk's little jokes. I think he must have brought that stone from California and hid it there. Why would you want to bury it? Bickie said. Oh, I don't know. Your Uncle Dirk, oh, he was like that. He liked to do queer little things like that. He liked to play tricks on people. He also liked stones. He had a whole collection of them in California. He must have fetched some of them along home with him. That evening, Bickie and Tommy went to the fence corner, to see that pile of rocks that Uncle Dirk had collected. But none of them, not even one, was like that thunder egg, and none of them were very pretty at all. They hurried to the house and told their mother about the polished stone Red Hog had showed them. Then they ran to get the rest of their chores done before dark. That night, as they sat on the floor with the thunder egg between them, they talked over all the things Red Hog had told them, and most of all, they wanted to figure out how they might earn $3 whole so they could take their stone to Marshalltown and have it cut and polished just like Red Hog's. Ooh, it's getting interesting. So, wonder what was under that rock. You getting any ideas yet? I can't wait for our next chapter. The Strange Soldier, Chapter 6. This will be our almost halfway point. Oh, I forgot to show you this picture. Not much of a picture, but this is the sign that they hung that hat on. And a hat like that, I looked it up, and it's kind of a tall hat, a stiff hat, kind of like, almost like a top hat, if you would. If I could find a picture of, maybe I'll try to show you guys one tomorrow. if I get the chance to. So tomorrow, the story again is The Strange Soldier. Well, thanks for watching. My kitty wants me to go give her some more food, so she's right here. I've got to go find the other kitty because she still hasn't come in since the grand dogs left. So have a great Sabbath. We'll see you all tomorrow.